Hi, I'm Carla Schaefer, Auntie Speeds designer, and I'm going to be demonstrating picture perfect frames. I'm going to go over a list of tools and supplies needed for this project. We'll be using the pewter picture frame charms, and they come in 3 finishes and about 6 different shapes and sizes. I'm going to be demonstrating using scrapbooking papers and pictures that I've taken out of magazines, but they can be used with vintage photographs and any paper printed with non-water soluble ink. I'm also going to be finishing the pictures with a Diamond Glaze, which is an adhesive that will dry and set up with a gloss finish. So you will also need some gem tack to glue the pictures into the frames and any assorted beads. The tools are fairly simple for this project. You'll need a pair of scissors or tweezers, and I started using a beading awl to trace out my pictures. And for tracing the pictures, you may also use this template, which gives you the shape of the hole or the surface area that the picture can go in. And so you will also need an old paintbrush to tap out bubbles in the adhesive when applying. The first thing I want to talk about is using the template and or using scrapbooking papers. So for instance, on this little oval copper, and it doesn't matter the finish, it does give you a demonstration of each shape. But for this oval one, I decided to isolate this flower out of this scrapbooking page, and I had found that when I first did them I was tracing it with a pen or a pencil, and then I could see the lines as I put them into the frame. So I started experimenting with my tweezers, and as I said, I started using this beading awl and really basically making a perforation around the template. And then I was able to cut it out with scissors, or even at some points punch it out. So this is kind of a way you would use the template to cut out your images. And scrapbooking papers are a very good way of using this. And here's, for instance, the one I did do in here. And what you want to do then is use your gem tack to put a little layer of gem tack down on the frame and then set the image inside, and I'll show you how to do that next. This is the flower charm, of which I have already cut out an image, traced it out and cut it out of scrapbooking paper. And again, you just want to take a little dab of adhesive. I'm using gem tack. You can use a tacky glue or anything like that. And you just want to bring a little bit out at the tip, rub it into the charm, and you can use your tweezers or fingers and set the image down into the frame. And you want to let this dry. And again, you want to use non-water soluble inks. I didn't heed that recommendation, and I printed something off of the printer with non-water soluble ink, and then when I put the glaze on it, the ink did run. So this is what they mean about using non-water soluble ink. And so scrapping your papers and those sorts of things really work very nice for these, plus photographs. So that's how you would glue them, let them set up for probably 30 minutes to an hour, and then you can apply your adhesive. This is the image I showed you how to trace the image, the charm that I showed you how to trace the image out of. And this is Judican's Diamond Glaze, and it is a water-based dimensional adhesive. So one of the recommendations they have is to avoid bubbles is to kind of squeeze a small amount of out of the tip to make sure you don't get any bubbles. And if you get bubbles, we'll tap them out with the paintbrush. But what you do after you've got your image in and it's dried, you just start gently squeezing this out into the charm, and it'll set in there. And depending on how much you get in the charm, it'll have a little raised look to it, kind of like it's under glass. And in this case, I don't have any. Oops, there's a bubble. Alright, so when bubbles occur, the only way to get them is to just kind of keep tapping them with the brush. And so that one came right out because it was a large one. So once you get the adhesive in there, you let it sit, and you do not want to touch them until they dry, and it'll take about 30 minutes for them to set up. On this one, I'm using the small flower charm, and on your template it tells you the dimensions of the inside of the charm, and in this case it is 3/8 inch, or it fits an 8mm. Well, that means I can get an 8mm Swarovski daisy spacer within this charm. So what I've done is I've put a little piece of purple paper down in the center, And then I'm just going to set in an 8mm Crystal AB daisy spacer. And again, here's a bubble, and you just want to eliminate as many bubbles as possible. And on this, it's a little trickier because you really want to make sure it gets down underneath the bead. So you just kind of let it flow over the top. And I do have bubbles. You're going to take your brush and just kind of tap the bubbles. And then some bubbles just don't ever go away, and you may see some of those. So I'm going to make sure I get it along the edges so it runs down the edges of the bead and flows down underneath. And preferably not over. And then again, you'll just let this set up. And this is what it looks like when it's finished. Okay, here again I've used a scrapbooking paper with some script on it, and it's pretty simple, black and white. So I wanted to add just a few seed beads, and I just grabbed some delicas, but you can use bally spacers, flat backs as you saw in the one that didn't use the correct ink paper or image for. So you can add any kind of little embellishment to these, and we can show you pictures of some of the others that I did. And again, you just lay your beads in. If you want them in a particular spot, in this case I'm just kind of scattering them, then you may want to apply a little gem tack after you glue the photo down. Otherwise they may move somewhat as you're applying the Diamond Glaze, and you will be able to move them around with your tweezers, but they will be kind of sticky. I'm just going to add this. And a good place to find, like I said, scrapbooking papers, old photos, and also magazines. I found a lot of images in magazines, especially for the color and composition of them, and those worked really well. So you have a seed bead stuck there. So just kind of scatter them about. Again, make sure you don't have any bubbles, and do not shake the bottle. That does add a bubble. I was doing good. I have a bubble. So then you just take your paintbrush again and just kind of tap your bubbles out. And I tried to do this really very gently, and I just decided that that doesn't work. You just need to really tap it, and then they disappear. Again, I just wanted to show you that I really like the glossy magazine papers, and again, this is just something I cut out of an ad actually. So again, with some glue on the bottom and placing this inside, they make really good charms and photos. So these are just a couple of examples of what you can do with the Diamond Glaze and the picture frame charms, and see what you can come up with.